Welcome into Boxing Scene Today here at the ProBox TV studios. Well, July 19th, going to be a busy day for us. And I'm not talking about watching one card all day. I'm talking about several cards from morning till night with star-studded fights on them. Which is more important? How can we watch it all? And how many are competing with one another? Interesting questions. To help me break it down, the champs, Chris Algieri, Paulie Malignaggi, also Coach Robert Garcia. You know what, Coach? I'm going to start with you because one of your fighters, Bam Rodriguez, unifying his title that night. His opponent, Sefu, not as well known, but you talk about it, this idea that he is very, very dangerous, man. What are your thoughts on this fight?
Look, definitely, Kafu is a fighter that just became champion not too long ago, but he's one of those guys that nobody knows. There's not much videos out there to study his style or anything like that. And those are the dangerous guys, man. Those guys that come, from a country where there's not too much boxing or there's not that many champions. They come in strong. He's probably I'd probably say he's probably the most dangerous in the division. And that's our first unification with Bam. We were actually planning on unifying and hopefully fighting for undisputed in the next couple of fights. But we have to get through Kafu first. It's not going to be an easy fight. Kafu is a solid champion.
Yeah, Fumalela Kafu, when I asked you about him, Chris, you were like, oh, what's this kid? And you looked at his record and went, oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. One of those guys that we're seeing more and more, Paulie, it's not just the Eastern Europeans, 11-0, 12-0, are getting opportunities they didn't get a few years ago, but they come in very, very tough, Chris.
Yeah, it's one of those. I mean, you look at his records, like he's 11-0-3, but you look at some of the names on his record, and he's a legitimate world champion. And you, like Robert said, he's a very dangerous guy. You don't know a lot about him. It's the unknown about guys like that. He's tall. He's obviously physically talented and gifted. So it's one of those you got to kind of figure out as you go, because like Robert said, you're not going to find a lot of tape on the guy. The guy can fight, man. He's from South Africa. It's a kind of not really a huge hotbed for boxing.
Every now and then somebody
Every once in a while you get some guy who can really fight.
Yeah, you do get the smaller guys there. I remember, was it back in the Robert? Maybe you remember. Was it Baby Jake Matlala who beat Carbajal back in the day?
Yes.
Right? It was South Africa.
Yeah.
So South Africa does give you these little guys.
I remember Francois Botha.
Well, Francois was a big guy. He's the opposite, right? He was the heavyweight, but even Corey Sanders.
Yeah.
But I think
Who was it? Philip Holiday?
Philip Holiday, lightweight
good.
champion.
He was
Yes.
very good.
Yes. The thing about these smaller weight classes is you kind of get this paradox at times with dealing with these kind of fighters, because the talent pool in the lower weight classes is not as deep, but sometimes when there's good fighters, they're very good fighters, and they're from they're from parts unknown, to use a wrestling term. They're not typically from America. And I think that when we talk about now, right? Oh, the smaller weight classes are getting more popular and whatnot. I just think the smaller weight classes get more popular in our hemisphere when there's fighters in our hemisphere that are that good in those weight classes. Yeah. When they're not, we just don't hear about them because the fights are in Asia or South Africa or whatever they are. But right now we have Bam Rodriguez, who's become a global phenom. So there's more interest in the smaller weight classes. So you're always curious. You're curious about Bam's next fight, and you're curious about, well, who is this guy? And you start to realize, yeah, this is sort of the like I said, the problem, the paradox, the conundrum. Is that a word?
Conundrum, yeah.
In these lower weight classes, you tend to have opponents. You don't really know a lot about them. Not a lot of footage available. They get title shots quicker because like I said, there's not as deep of a talent pool. But when they're good, they're good, and we've seen good generations of small fighters. We just went through one, right, with Chocolatito and Estrada and all those other guys, and then now we're here with Bam. You talk about in the '90s when you had the Carbajal, Chiquita Gonzalez, and also Ricardo Finito Lopez. When they're good, they're good. But dude, it gets tricky. It gets tricky. These guys will sneak up on you. Like I just said, back in the day, Matlala snuck up on Carbajal.
Yeah, with this idea that isn't all we have that night. We just discussed Bam Rodriguez's fight. We also have Alexander Usyk versus Daniel Dubois 2.
Good fight.
We have Tim Tszyu versus Sebastian Fendor 2,
really
that rematch. And that is on the same card as the return of Manny Pacquiao against Mario Barrios. So
interesting fight.
All interesting across the board. So, Paulie, let me start with you. When you look at those four, let's say big fights on that day and night, what intrigues you the most?
Usyk and Dubois intrigues me because there's controversy from the first one, and there's also a curiosity: how good can Dubois be? can Usyk at this age continue to be as good as he's been? So there's enough questions to where I'm like, you know what? I want to find out. I want to watch. So that, I mean, listen, we're boxing fans. We're gonna watch anyway. But sometimes we're watching knowing the fight's gonna suck. We all watch Canelo Skull knowing that fight was gonna suck, and we still watched it, right? So with this one, what I like when there's enough curiosity to say, I'm going to watch, but I want to watch. I look forward to watching, and that's one of those. There's enough question marks, and I know I love the panel's opinions as well. There's enough question marks to get me curious about it. At nighttime, I think there's a little bit of something for everybody. I think Pacquiao is for the crossover fans. He's been a crossover phenomenal star. He's older. There's curiosity about what he can do at that age, but also the fact that he is the crossover star may attract some casuals. For the hardcore boxing fans, I think the fight is Fendor and Tszyu because, there's a lot of unfinished business with the first one, the controversy of the first one. The first one was a good fight. Sort of see that rematch again, to see the rematch of the first fight. There's the curiosity. So I think we have a little bit for everybody on that night. And on the PBC card, on the Matchroom card, and on the European card as well. Yeah. Are they both Matchroom cards, the Bam and Dubois Usyk?
Dubois Usyk. Because Dubois is Warren.
Queensbury, right?
Warren.
Queensbury, yeah. Could be Queensbury. Whatever. You guys know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The Zone, Amazon, all the good
all
stuff.
over the place. Now, what I'm curious about, to piggyback off of what you said, Tim Tszyu taking off Fendor, he only has, had obviously back-to-back losses. Then he had the Joseph Spencer win. Okay, good stuff. Showed he's kind of back in it. Then he jumps in against Fendora, who is tall, awkward, all about the gifts. Is that one win enough, Chris? Dude. Would you like to see a little more from Tim Tszyu?
This
is a little early.
This is how Tszyu operates, and unfortunately for him, it hasn't really been working out. He's tough as nails. We love him for it. He acts exactly the way you want a champion to act. He takes on the toughest fights possible, even when it's not in his best interest. He fights, and he's doing it again. He's stepping right back into a really big fight, which is a really difficult fight. Fendor is a nightmare for absolutely everyone. The guy is 6'7". It's ridiculous that he's able to make 154. He can punch.
Tallest champion right now?
He's tall. He's long. He's learning how to use his jab and his length. He's an ever-developing fighter. Excuse me. So he's a problem for anyone. I don't care. They've already spent 12 rounds together. That's a tall task, literally. But I think Tim Tszyu's doing this once again. He's going right into a tough fight, not in the best timing for him. And but listen, that's the way the guy operates. It hasn't worked it out, but it could this time.
So, Coach, give me the coach's perspective here. If you're working with a guy like Tim Tszyu, what do you find? 6'8" sparring partners? Are you having him spar super middleweights?
Our guy Michael Fox.
How are you getting ready for a guy like this? And also, how do you judge how mentally and tactically your guy is prepared for a fight like this?
Won't be easy, it won't be easy to find sparring partners that tall, you just can't. You have to go to heavyweights, and it's impossible for him to be sparring heavyweights. So just as long as he gets tall guys, that he just needs to be in great shape. His team definitely has to have a good game plan, to work the body if that's what it is. Whatever it is, they have to come up with a good game plan and be in great shape. I give him respect, just like Chris is saying, he doesn't have to get into that fight. It's a dangerous fight. It's a very difficult fight, but he wants it. That's what we like to see. As a fan, I love that. Let's also not forget that they're also putting on that same card. That's what the PBC is doing, a really good card on that. With Manny Pacquiao and Barrios, they have Tim Tszyu versus Fendora, but they're also putting the rematch between Pitbull and Fierro.
Good fight.
That was a tough fight. That was a very close fight, and I don't know if you guys already found out, but Fierro's actually training in my gym. He knows I'm not going to be able to work his corner, but yeah, he's getting ready in my gym. He came for the sparring, for the work, and I guess they seen that I prepared Rayo Valenzuela to beat Pitbull, so they want my help. So I'm gonna help him during training camp, and hopefully it works out. I won't be able to go to his fight because I will be with Bam. Another thing is San Antonio, Texas. You got Barrios, who is from San Antonio, Texas, fighting Manny Pacquiao, and you got Bam Rodriguez, who is San Antonio's superstar. But when it comes to who they're gonna choose to go, you got Barrios against Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao is a legend, so the city is gonna be divided.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard to see. The whole city, which side they're gonna take.
It's an exciting night for that city, though. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Although I want to give my hot take because I'm the hot take guy. And yesterday I gave the hot takes about guys, and I gave the example of me and Champ Chris. So you fight guys when they're at their most dangerous, and then you got the guys who chump it up and fool the fools at home, and they decide to fight the name guys who were names a decade ago, but they're fighting them now. So you're not fighting them when the fight is at its best. But then on a resume 10 years later, you can say, oh, he did beat this guy, beat this guy, beat this guy. But the when you fight them matters, okay? And when we're talking about Tim Tszyu, the difficulty of the fights. There are guys, remain nameless because you guys know who I criticize constantly in this sport because they do this chump stuff all the time, okay? There are guys in this sport that in Tim Tszyu's position would go and find your Jason Rosarios, your Jared Hurds, your and shamelessly take the money and fight these kind of guys and say, "Huh, he was a world champion. He's on my resume." Yeah, 7,000 years ago. Does that count? I don't know. If I dig up somebody out of the cemetery when they were a world champion, does that fill up my resume, or is that a disgrace? I don't know. So fans at home got to stop falling for it. I am trying to educate you guys. Smarten up, please. Smarten up, And yes, maybe it's not always smart to do it the way Tim Tszyu's doing it, but that's only because the fans aren't intelligent enough to appreciate it. If you appreciate guys taking on tough fights and fighting the best fighters at their best, you get the best fights, the most exciting fights. Remember Tim Tszyu in the first situation with Fendor? What did he do? He was supposed to fight Keith Thurman. On 3 weeks' notice, he changes from a 5'11" right-hander, 5'10" right-hander,
power puncher,
to a
coming up in weight,
to a 6'6" left-hander.
Yes,
you know what I mean? So didn't blink. Now, again, wasn't smart, but did it give the fans their entertainment value? That's all that should matter for you guys. The entertainment value, is it a worthwhile fight? Isn't that what you're supposed to be looking forward to? Good fights and exciting fights that you can sit down and brag to your non-boxing friends about. This is why I watch boxing. Or do you want that crap that your favorite fighter, who I don't even know why some of these guys are your favorite fighters, they fight ushers and cab drivers every fight, and mowing down somebody who's got no chance. I don't know. What does that do for you? Exciting fights.
Oh, it makes a clip on social media. Because that's what matters, right?
Yeah,
that's what
viral,
everybody cares
right?
about. We're going viral on the clip.
So and to stay on Tim, and Tim Tszyu's not the only one. Teofimo Lopez does this. Look constantly chases the toughest fight, and then puts his money where his mouth is. Actually does it. Doesn't just talk it. So a lot of guys are good talkers. Social media has given guys the illusion that they look for the tough fights when they don't. But they. Guys like Teofimo Lopez want this. Shakur Stevenson chases it, but nobody wants to fight him. There are guys that do this, but they should be more appreciated instead of appreciating the guys who talk a big game and then sort of maneuver in and around the other way. I give you the example with Tszyu because obviously Tszyu is the one we're talking about on this card, but there are fighters in this sport that propel themselves and to test themselves consistently, and they put their money where their mouth is, and they actually do it, and they don't just say it. They are about it. They don't just talk about it. And I feel like those fighters should be appreciated more.
All right, very good point. But Chris, does it get overlooked that up until the cut, he was winning that fight? Tim Tszyu was looking very, very good.
That's the thing, and I'll let the champ give his thoughts, but I don't think it's the same fight anymore because of that. The first fight, I'm like, well, that was a wash. That wasn't going to be a wash. It wasn't even going to be competitive. But now I don't know. What do you think, champ?
Well, I think Fendor's gotten a lot better since then. So it is a
confidence-wise, right?
So Fendor was also taking that fight on short notice as well. It's not one-sided. Yeah. So he was.
Well, Fendor was training for Mendoza, Bohocek on the undercard. Yeah.
Right, tough fight. Very tough fight. He was in great shape. It was a world title fight. He was defending his title.
And it was crazy looking at that. No, Bohocek might have knocked him out. Isn't it crazy?
Yes.
You end up getting Tszyu instead, and you win the fight.
Yeah, Bohocek is a problem. But although he did have trouble with Michael Fox, who's another tall guy, so you could have an issue with taller guys. But Fendor is. There's chinks in the armor. Yeah. We know that. But since then, because you got to think. So again, he's taking that fight on short notice. He had the war with Erickson Lubin. He got knocked out by Mendoza. So we're looking at this, and we're like, how good is this guy really? And then the elbow happens, the cut happens. Fendor uses his jab because he actually has to, and Tszyu can't see. He ends up getting the win. But since then, he seems like he's really developing, staying in the gym, staying ready, looking for the biggest fights. Even his aura, we got to interview him, and he's a different guy now.
He's a man.
And Tszyu is also a different guy. He's been beaten twice. He was destroyed by Murtazaliev. So that doesn't go away.
Psychologically,
and you got an easy win over Joey Spencer. Is he really back to where he was?
Psychologically, Fendor is more confident. We don't know where psychologically Tszyu is, right? And that was a big factor in the first fight because Tszyu was flying psychologically going into the first fight.
And I would never question Tim Tszyu in terms of his psychology. we've had the chance
It's
to interview
natural.
him because he is a warrior. He's one of those guys. He's very proud. He's very aware. He's very smart. Tim Tszyu guy. But I remember looking at him doing an interview after the Murtazalia fight, and he was like flabbergasted. He's like, "What happened?" Like he didn't know what happened. That's scary for a fighter to be at that level, to not know what happened. That doesn't leave your mind so easily.
Yeah, very, very true. You don't recover easily from a knockout. Well, going from one rematch to another, when you look at Alexander Usyk, greatest heavyweight of this era, I mean, one of the greatest of all time, a rematch with Daniel Dubois. Coach, let me start with you. This idea that we're having a rematch of a fight that Usyk won last time, this idea that he is fighting better than he ever has, but so is Dubois. How do you like these guys coming together now? Do you think we get a different fight?
I think it's a perfect timing. You know, they're both on top. You know, on top with great wins. You know, Usyk obviously pound for pound the best fighter in the world. I think it's a great challenge. You know, the first one was a little controversial. There was a little bit of controversy with the body shot and stuff like that. That we all disputed, and everybody has a different opinion. I think it's gonna be a very competitive fight. I think Dubois is in a great moment right now. I think Dubois is a big guy. He's gonna go out there and put pressure and try to dominate with his physical strength. And Usyk, obviously, great boxer, great counter puncher, very great speed and technique. But he does get affected when we see pressure on him, when we see body shots on him. So I think Dubois is going to put on a great fight, and I expect a really good fight. Good thing is we're going to see it early. You know, we're not going to have to wait till next day. We're going to see it early.
What I'm curious about, Paulie, if you could fill in the blanks here, what is so interesting, you talk about, giving the fans what they want and providing great fights. Usyk doesn't have to fight anybody. Like, if he walked right now, he would get his laurel and go, I'm it.
Well, he's one of those guys too, right? I mean, honestly, the heavyweight division has had these. I mean, Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, even Fury, even though he took layoffs, they chased each other, they fought each other.
Yeah.
It wasn't one of those situations. The heavyweight division has sort of given us these kind of guys that they did chase the biggest fights, and they didn't just talk about it, they were about it, right? With the exception of Wilder and Joshua, we got a lot of the matchups we wanted, and we didn't have to wait too long for them, right?
We didn't get Fury and Joshua either.
We didn't get, well, that's because Fury took the time off. But when Fury was around, though, he was fighting. Yeah. And Joshua and Wilder, they gave us, they put their money where their mouth is. They fought. Joshua didn't have to fight Dubois. A guy in Joshua's position could have done the same thing a lot of these other guys do. Could have just milked his name.
Joshua's a warrior.
And then Joshua went in and fought Dubois, And Usyk, in the same manner, is doing that again. Even at 37 years old, you could say, if you take the mentality of some of these other fighters, or a lot of them are your favorite fighters, guys, you would say, oh, I already beat him, I don't have to fight him again. Or he could do like, okay, well, I'm going to mention it. What am I going to do? He could do like Canelo and wait till Usyk's 45 and then fight him. He could do that too, like Canelo did with Golovkin after he robbed him twice. But we won't go into that too much, right? But instead, what these guys do, they chase the toughest fights, and they make it, and sometimes to their own detriment, like we just talked about with Tszyu. Dubois could win this one. I mean, I think there's a curiosity there. I think Usyk at his best still beats Dubois. But you're at an age at 37 where the wheels could fall off at any point. You step in the ring at any point. Once you hit these ages, and Coach Garcia, I want your thoughts on this too. When because you've gone into some things very well about how you deal with training older fighters and whatnot. You sometimes they step in the ring and all of a sudden it's not there anymore, right? You find out on fight night they were there, and all of a sudden like, what happened to this guy? Well, he got old in the night, right?
100%. It happens all the time. You could get old from one day to the other. It's one fight to the next. You could perform your best performance, and then the next fight, you aged already. It happens a lot. It happens in boxing, and we could see that with Usyk pretty soon. He's already up there in age. He's already had too many training camps. He's already had too many sparring matches. It's not easy. It's a tough sport. You guys all know that. You guys all been in big fights, and it's not easy.
And Dubois has a chip on his shoulder right now. There's a controversy of the first fight. He's come back roaring, winning since then, and he wants to make that wrong or right. You also got a guy with a chip on his shoulder.
But it's also similar to when we're talking about the Fendor-Tszyu fight. That in this rematch is very different fight. It's a very different fight. Usyk is older now, right? So all right. So like you said, Usyk at his best, he's here, and Dubois here, right? I agree with you. I think at Usyk's best, he always beats Dubois, but Where is Usyk in terms of his absolute best at this point? Because he's probably not at the top anymore. He's getting older. He's getting older day by day, just like we're talking about. But guess what? Dubois has gotten a lot better since then.
Yeah.
Do you remember that conversation in the ring after they fought? Where Usyk told him, "Don't quit. You're very, very good. You're going to come back and do." Now they're fighting again.
It's working against you,
Dubois,
buddy. Maybe you pumped him up too much.
You pumped up the wrong guy because now he went on a tear after that, right? So Dubois was one of those guys who, when he was coming up, because of his physicality, his talent, his punch, his everything, just you look at him, you're like, God, this guy is so big and strong and such a puncher, and he is actually durable. But then he had those 2 losses. You know, the first one was what's his name? The Juggernaut.
Joe Joyce.
Joe Joyce. But it was a fractured orbital.
Yeah.
So he didn't get knocked out. It wasn't like his chin failed him. His bones failed him. That happens. And listen, a lot of people came down on him.
Yeah.
I did.
It's a tough weight class. That's a tough injury.
Tough injury
Very
against
tough
a guy who throws a lot of punches at a heavyweight division. Very, very different. Then he got the Usyk fight where he showed those flashes of where that hype was from. And then he kind of, the body shot happens, and he kind of falls apart and melts down, and Usyk gets him out of there, right? So you're looking at this guy, you're like,
he can't keep it together.
He can't keep it together. He doesn't have the heart. He doesn't have the balls. He doesn't, he can't put it together. Then he goes on a tear, beating up all these guys trying to bully him. The Jarrell Miller won. Jarrell was talking him down like a child, and Jarrell's really good at talking, and Jarrell's really good at fighting, and he goes out there and stops Jarrell Miller. That's crazy. Yeah. Then he gets the Philip Urquidez fight. Urquidez is the same thing. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that.
And Urquidez was the boogeyman.
And he's the boogeyman, and he's a bully. And then
he bullied the bully.
He bullied the bully. So his ability to adapt and find his confidence makes us a different guy.
Dude, that reminds me. Didn't he actually get hurt in one of the comeback fights with the?
Yes, he got hurt badly.
The first one after Usyk, right?
Yes, bad.
It almost came undone right then and there. Imagine he would have lost that fight. He was hurt bad. He was almost gone in that fight.
I think I dropped like 3 times. In a fight.
Think about coming back from that and now all the way to where he's gotten. The boxing is a game of inches in that way. I mean, a lot of sports are. If you get knocked out in that first round, after you've been criticized so much for the losses you've just taken, and you haven't made it's over, bro. I mean, you're thrown out on four. I'm not saying it's right, but this goes to show you why sometimes we shouldn't put fighters out to pasture too early, because Dubois could have very easily been knocked out in the first round of that first comeback fight. Instead, he roared back, and then since then he's gone on that tear.
And he was
same guy.
He was underdog in all 3 of those fights. It was the Jarrell Miller fight, the
part of the reason
fight,
was
and
that,
Joshua.
Right?
So. And he knocked out all 3 of them.
Impressive. So is he the favorite here, or is he underdog against Usyk? Is he underdog again?
Yeah, he's been surely be the underdog.
Gotta be a dog.
He will surely be the underdog.
He's been the underdog every single time. So it's almost like it doesn't even matter to him anymore. He knows how to win that way.
Well, that's where he shines. And as this card gets closer, July 19th, of course, we'll break down every fight individually. But it's going to be a long day and night for all of us. Appreciate you here from Boxing Scene Today. For the champs, for Coach Garcia, we appreciate you watching. Join us for your boxing news and find out why millions are watching.